But first to our top story, crypto's dancing across the screen as Tesla revealed it's purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin and said it would soon accept the crypto as a form of payment for its electric cars. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has been hyping up both Bitcoin and Dogecoin, a much lower valued crypto, over just the past few days. Musk was then joined in the last 24 hours by the likes of Snoop Dogg and Kiss frontman Gene Simmons in posting tweets and memes backing Dogecoin. In fact, over just the past day, Simmons tweeted more than a dozen times about the peer-to-peer digital currency. Is this a sign of widespread adoption or the fastest forming bubble seen in the space? Let's bring in CoinShares Chief Strategy Officer Meltem Demirors and KRBE Digital Assets co-founder Isaiah Jackson. Isaiah, to you first. From Bitcoin's wild price action, crypto investors, it seems to me that they see Elon's investment as validation that Bitcoin is real and a legitimate investment. Do you think that's a legitimate outlook? And what do you think drove his investment?
Well, in retrospect, it was inevitable. Like Elon Musk has stated himself, it seems as though the Tesla CEO buying $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin is something that every CEO and CFO will have to take a look at in the coming future. And I think that his investment is just another notch on the belt for Bitcoin as a store of value long term. And I think we will see more of this in the coming future.
I'm just looking at the price right now. It's at, let's see, 43,000 and change. High of the session, $44,211. And Meltem, I got to tell you, we could flip through some of the other ones here. Everything from Ethereum to XRP to Litecoin. It's just unbelievable. Ethereum is up 8.9%. XRP up 7.25%. And that one's got an SEC investigation going in. So what do you think about this?
Look, I think let's start with the SEC first. Bitcoin is not a security, so Bitcoin does not fall under the purview of the SEC. Now, Tesla, as a publicly listed company, is most certainly under the purview of the SEC, which is why Elon Musk waited to make any public statements until Tesla filed officially this morning that statement indicating what it's doing with its corporate treasury. Now, when it comes to other crypto assets, at CoinShares, we have $4 billion in assets under management, primarily in Bitcoin. But last week, we track weekly fund flows of investors allocating to publicly listed investment vehicles. Last week, 80% of inflows, or about $175 million, went into Ethereum investment products. And we have never seen institutional interest like that before. So the landscape is changing, and we see firms, corporations allocating to Bitcoin, but investors are also looking at other digital assets that could have long-term potential to help diversify ththose balance sheets.
The Winklevoss twins have been very big in Ethereum, obviously, but they also like Bitcoin. It's almost as if, Isaiah, this moment in time is very big for cryptocurrency, but I'm not sure people really understand what's happening, especially considering you've got celebrities like Gene Simmons and Snoop Dogg weighing in, the rapper. You know, obviously he's making a play on Doge and dog because Dogecoin's meme is a little dog. But tell me what worries you, what excites you about this actual moment right now when a Kiss frontman is saying, I am the god of Doge, but he is an investor.
Yeah, so anyone who is an investor or is looking at some of these digital assets, you have to realize that these are speculative and that Dogecoin, as well as others, are the talk of the town right now because of the increase in price, but they are speculative. You have to remember that a lot of celebrities, whenever something becomes popular, they do jump on the wave, which is good, but Bitcoin has been here since 2009. It's here to stay, and I think that its staying power is just a testament to the value that it will bring long-term to CEOs like Elon Musk. And I think these celebrities that are joining in on the altcoin party will definitely have their say as far as the increase in value. But long-term, Bitcoin is the play.
Meltem, Tell me, because you're absolutely right. Because it is not an actual stock, these names are not under the purview of the SEC, but XRP has said it's a currency. The SEC says, no, you're not. You're actually an investment vehicle. They're going to fight that out. But right now, investors in XRP don't seem to be having a problem. That's moving higher. But you went to MIT, and so did the Commodities Futures Trading Commission former potential SEC chair Gary Gensler. And he is the one who's actually taught a course on Bitcoin. He's not afraid of it. Is he going to rain on any kind of parade here, or is he going to take a step back?
Yeah, so actually, Gary Gensler and I also testified in front of Congress together in 2019 during the Libra hearings. And I will tell you this, Mr. Gensler is very well aware of Bitcoin and what makes Bitcoin so unique when compared to something like XRP. Really, what this is about, look, Bitcoin is clearly under the purview of the CFTC, and the CFTC is really concerned with market manipulation and market fairness. But Bitcoin's supply schedule is known. There really is no quote unquote insider information around Bitcoin because Bitcoin has a public ledger. The Bitcoin blockchain is actually extremely transparent, and there are a lot of different data providers that are accessible, like Masari or Coinmetrics, that help people analyze what's happening in the Bitcoin network, just like people analyze what's happening in the oil industry to get a sense of where oil prices might be going. So I'm less concerned about the SEC's approach towards Bitcoin. What I am interested to see, because as an asset manager, we create listed products that people can buy and sell in their brokerage accounts and in their 401ks and IRAs. Okay. What we really want to see is some more clarity on listed Bitcoin investment products that allow U.S. investors, whether they're institutions or retail investors, to get access to Bitcoin at the actual price of Bitcoin. A lot of products right now trade at a premium. So I think the SEC will have a lot on its plate there. But there are a whole host of financial issues in markets right now, as we saw last week with GameStop and Robinhood. So I don't know how high Bitcoin itself will be on that list. I will say this, with Tesla now having Bitcoin on its balance sheet, and Tesla December 20th was added to every S&P index fund, there's going to be a lot more coverage of Bitcoin in corporate treasuries, and that is something I think we can all be excited about when it comes to more education and just more investor awareness.
Okay. Well, I think both you and Isaiah agree that you got to have some legitimacy swirling around it. Maybe Tesla gives that with this huge investment, but we are going to be watching it. Isaiah, Meltem, please come back again.